course, the BRICS Summit is currently underway in China. This is the first time South Africa has been included in the BRICS nations. It is a very exciting time, and there has been interesting rhetoric that has come to the fore. Chinese President Hu Jintao is talking about the new era that demands the BRICS countries to strengthen dialogue and cooperation. It seems that one of the big issues, Peter, at this point, that it is just about talking, it is just about the rhetoric. The question is, will they be making good on any of the comments that has come through today?
Hi, yes. So I think it's very interesting how they're basically positioning themselves in sort of parallel to the G20, if you like, talking about many of the similar issues about commodity prices, about the international monetary system, the need to have the dollar not being quite such a force in that international monetary system, and similar things like SDRs being discussed as well. But there is some real movement behind the scenes, I think. Very interesting. We've seen now this multilateral agreement between the BRICS countries to have their development banks working together to basically channel finance around the BRICS to basically improve infrastructure and things like that. That's actually probably where South Africa can actually benefit most from. Clearly, South Africa is not going to be providing financing to China. It's going to be the other way around. So possibly some positive outcome for South Africa on that front.
Well, Peter, let's take a step back and look at where South Africa is in the whole scope of things. At the end of the day, we've got very much lower growth than what we're seeing in the other BRICS nations when you compare us to the likes of India and China and Russia and Brazil. But at the end of the day, we do have that developed side of the market. So in other words, we're looking more like a developed nations when it comes to the growth aspect. But on the other end, we've got emerging market elements as well. How do you think that we could juggle this?
Exactly, this is the key point and the somewhat perplexing fact of exactly why South Africa is in the BRICS, and it's not to do at all with South Africa. I think it's mainly to do with South Africa as the voice of the rest of Africa, as a representative there for the region as a whole, so that the BRICS basically can say that they have Asia, Latin America, and Africa there as well. As you said, growth rates very much low. I think actually people often talk about the relative size of the economy. I think the much more interesting thing is actually relative potential growth rates. You have Russia up there at sort of 5% potential growth rate. China obviously up about 8-9% potential growth, but South Africa down way down there at sort of 3.75 for potential growth rates. So that's really stands out the difference between them, and I think it needs to be very clear for South Africa that it's not necessarily there for its own good. It's there to promote the rest of Africa, to get funding for the rest of Africa, and if it does that, I think its position will be strengthened. But if Jacob Zuma is just there for his own ego, if you like, or for South Africa, then that perhaps it could backfire.
With regards to the dollar, and we saw another dig at the dollar today, you were talking about the special drawing rights that we have seen, of course, the yuan not included in that as yet, and it seems that most of the leaders tiptoeing around that point. What they did come to an agreement on is credit lines denominated in our local currencies within the BRICS nations. Does this mean that we could see even stronger flows into the rand because of this?
That's certainly a possibility if that financing flow goes from China, say, into the IDC, particularly in South Africa. I think will be one of the main beneficiaries. But I think the interesting case is this talk of bilateral local currency denominated trade and financing. And that's obviously come up in the BRICS in the past, where there was an agreement between China and Brazil to deal with each other in their local currencies. And I think that's partly political, a move away from the dollar, as opposed necessarily to the advantages of working in local currency. But it certainly can strengthen emerging market, generally liquidity in FX and rand as well, which should hopefully dampen volatility slightly if you get more liquidity in the market in those bilateral trades.
Peter, very quickly, where do you see the rand going from these levels? We're seeing a slight, they say, short-term correction. Do you think this is perhaps pointing to an overall weakening trend?
Well, I mean, I think the RAND story is very much the same as in previous weeks. We're seeing some pretty volatile trading by clients at the moment, as people are basically grasping towards a theme in the RAND and not totally happy with what they're finding. I think there's much more interest in playing the rates market at the moment than there is in the currency, and hence we see the RAND continuing in a broad sideways motion, albeit in quite a large and volatile band around where it is now.